It was a typical Friday night. I had settled in with a movie and some takeout, ready to unwind after a long work week. My phone buzzed and I glanced over, surprised to see multiple messages from Derek, my best friend since high school. He was rarely the type to blow up my phone, especially at this time of night. I picked up the phone, half expecting it to be a series of funny memes or a casual invite for our weekend hiking plans. But his first message stopped me in my tracks. "Hey, things are really tense here with Mandy. She's, she's saying things." That wasn't like Derek. He and Mandy had been dating for almost a year, and while she was a bit high-strung at times, I thought things were going well. I typed back, confused. "What kind of things?" There was a long pause before his next message appeared on the screen. "She thinks you and I have a kid together." I blinked at the phone, trying to process what I was reading. Mandy thought Derek and I had a child together? A wild laugh escaped my lips. It was so absurd it almost didn't feel real. Derek and I had been friends for over a decade. Sure, we were close, but our relationship was purely platonic. I'd been to his birthday parties, knew his family, even helped him pick out anniversary gifts for past girlfriends. But a child? This had to be some kind of joke. "You're kidding, right?" I typed back, half hoping this was some elaborate prank. But the three little dots indicating he was typing continued for far longer than they would if he were joking. "I wish I was. She's convinced. Said she saw a picture on your social media of you with a kid. Apparently that's proof in her eyes." Then it hit me. The picture he was talking about had to be the one I'd posted a few days ago of me with my baby nephew Oliver. My sister had asked me to babysit, and it had been a fun, exhausting day. I'd snapped a picture of us at the park, captioned it with something like, "Fun day with my favorite little guy," and posted it on social media without a second thought. That photo was all it had taken for Mandy to build an elaborate, completely fictional story about Derek and me. And she hadn't just assumed we were close friends with a sense of humor. No, she had gone to the extreme, creating an entire hidden life where Derek and I were raising a child together. "That's my nephew in the picture," I texted back quickly, hoping that would clear things up. "My sister's baby Oliver. There's absolutely nothing going on here, Derek. You know that." The following day, Derek and I decided to meet at our favorite coffee shop to talk things out. We knew we couldn't just leave it as it was. If Mandy was spiraling into suspicion over one innocent photo, she wouldn't let this go easily. When I walked in, Derek was already there, hunched over a steaming cup of coffee, looking more tired than I'd ever seen him. I slid into the seat across from him, giving him a sympathetic smile. "Hey," I said softly, "rough night?" He looked up, the lines around his eyes deepening as he nodded. "You have no idea. She's been going on about this all night, pulling up old conversations and asking me if I've been hiding anything. It's like she's forgotten who I am and who we are. I don't know how to convince her otherwise." I took a deep breath. "Derek, this is insane. It's just a photo of me with my nephew. How did she even come up with the idea that we'd have a child together?" "She said I've been weird about kids lately," he replied with a frustrated shake of his head. "Apparently she thinks that because I'm not constantly talking about how much I want kids, I must be hiding something. And then she found that photo of you and Oliver, and I guess it confirmed whatever crazy theory she'd been brewing up." I laughed bitterly, struggling to wrap my head around it. "I mean, she must be really insecure to even come up with something like that. What are you going to do?" Derek rubbed his forehead, looking genuinely lost. "I don't know. She's convinced she's right. I tried to tell her, but, well, you know Mandy, and I did. Mandy was someone who often jumped to conclusions, held grudges, and wasn't easily persuaded once she made up her mind. When Derek had first started dating her, I'd thought she might be just the kind of stable influence he needed, someone who would pull him out of his shell and make him more sociable. But as I listened to him recount the previous night's fight, I began to wonder if their relationship had deeper issues than he wanted to admit. As Derek and I were discussing how to handle the situation, the coffee shop door swung open, and in walked Mandy. She scanned the room, her gaze landing on us almost immediately. Her face was hard, eyes cold as she approached, arms crossed tightly over her chest. "Nice to see you're both here," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Having a nice time together?" I bristled at her tone, but Derek immediately reached out, trying to calm her down. Mandy, we're just talking. You need to understand, there's nothing between us. This whole idea is ridiculous? Because that's exactly what you'd say if you were lying, Mandy shot back, her eyes never leaving mine. You think I don't see what's happening here? You think I don't notice how you two look at each other? Mandy, this is absurd, I interrupted, unable to keep my frustration at bay. I've known Derek since we were teenagers. He's like a brother to me. The child you're talking about is my nephew. I was babysitting for my sister. She scoffed, clearly not convinced. I'm not an idiot. This is exactly the kind of thing you two would come up with to cover your tracks. Derek groaned, rubbing his temples. Mandy, listen to yourself. This is my best friend. There's nothing between us. I don't have a child. I don't even want kids right now. Mandy's face softened momentarily as she looked at Derek, but then her expression hardened again, and she crossed her arms. If that's true, then you should have no problem proving it, she said with a challenging look. Proving it? I asked, feeling my patience wearing thin. What are we supposed to do? Get a DNA test on my nephew to prove he's not Derek's child? But Mandy just stared at us, as though daring us to find a way to reassure her, and I could tell that whatever we said would fall short. The days following the confrontation were rough for Derek. Mandy grew increasingly suspicious, scrutinizing his every move. She questioned his time spent at work, probed into his phone calls, and seemed to pick fights over the smallest details. Each time Derek tried to explain, but it was as though every answer only confirmed her suspicions. I knew that his relationship was at a breaking point, but Derek seemed torn. He wanted to help her work through her insecurities, but at the same time, he couldn't live under constant suspicion and scrutiny. One evening, he called me, his voice sounding hollow. I don't know what to do anymore, but I can't keep living like this. Mandy's convinced that I'm lying, no matter what I say. I don't know how to make her see the truth. Derek, maybe this isn't something you can fix. She's created a problem where there isn't one. You've done everything you can to be open and honest, I said gently, feeling a surge of empathy for my friend. He was genuinely torn, and it hurt to see him suffer like this. The following week, Mandy delivered an ultimatum. If Derek didn't prove his innocence by ending our friendship, she would end their relationship. It was an impossible demand, one that made Derek finally realize that no amount of reassurance would ever satisfy her doubts. Their breakup was messy and painful, with Mandy clinging to her accusations until the very end, unwilling to believe anything that contradicted her theory. In the aftermath, Derek was devastated. The accusation had taken a toll on him, leaving him questioning his ability to trust and be trusted. I never thought someone I cared about could believe something so ridiculous, he confided in me one day, his voice heavy with sadness. She just couldn't let it go. Over time, Derek began to heal, and our friendship stayed intact, though changed by what we'd gone through. The accusation was absurd, but it taught us both a lot about the importance of trust and communication in any relationship. And though it was painful to watch him go through it, Derek eventually came to understand that sometimes no amount of reassurance can convince someone who's already made up their mind. As for Mandy, we heard through mutual friends that she continued to believe her own version of events, convinced she had been betrayed. But Derek and I knew the truth, and it was a relief to be